In today's episode, we're looking at secular Buddhism. How can we use the Dhamma and its practice in a meaningful way to become kinder, more compassionate, and ultimately lead a rich and meaningful life, all without clinging to rituals and religious symbolism? Remember, the Dhamma isn't so much about believing in something, it's about the practice. Ultimately, it's something that we do. Secular Buddhism and meditation practice, but without all the heavy symbolism and religious dogma. I'm Alexander. I have over a decade of meditation experience, and I was once a Buddhist monk within the Theravada Thai forest tradition. Let me be clear, this history does not make me an ajahn or a guru of any kind. I'm only here to guide your meditation practice and encourage you to navigate the Eightfold Path with an open mind, but not so open that your brains fall out. One thing that is important to remember before you start throwing rotten tomatoes at me is the fact that there are many different traditions and many different forms of Buddhism to begin with. There is the Theravada school that stretches geographically from Sri Lanka in the west across the southeast of Asia, with the exception of Vietnam. Then we have the Mahayana school, that is the dominant form in China, Japan, and Korea. Tibetan Buddhism is a whole chapter on its own, with its own unique traditions. And then each one of those have subdivision into different branches, such as Zen, Pure Land, Newar, Shingon, among many others. All of these are, of course, the result of different conditions and cultural adaptations. I know that not everyone would agree with me here, but I think it would be exceptionally brave, bordering ignorant, to claim that only one of these is right and the rest are all wrong. It's the year 2025, and I live here in La Condesa, in the heart of Mexico City. So which branch of Buddhism would be the most relevant for me here and now? Is there even one? And if so, how do I need to swallow that whole? And how do I deal with some of the religious aspects and concepts that I find abstract or irrelevant to me, or at least a little hard to digest? I've always been fairly scientifically minded in my worldview. I've never been religious or believed in any god of any kind. So, that said, I find it a little hard to accept supernatural or metaphysical concepts like traditional reincarnation, karma, and different realms of existence. I mean, what do I know? Maybe it's so. But I find no particular evidence for any of those, so I tend to remain agnostic at best. The way I look at it, and this is where deeper psychological interpretations come in, I choose to see karma not as a cosmic ledger, but as the natural law of cause and effect in this life. Basically, that wholesome intentions lead to wholesome outcomes. And I see rebirth as the continuous kind of moment-to-moment conditioning of our minds, shaping the person that we are from one moment to the next. This way of looking at things allows us to understand these concepts without taking them too literally at all. The Buddha apparently put it like this. See if I can remember. Just as a goldsmith would test his gold by rubbing it, cutting it, and melting it, so you should examine my words and not accept them solely because of reverence for me. This very famous instruction comes from the Kalama Sutta, one of the earlier texts, and it's the absolute bedrock of a secular approach. I mean, it's a direct invitation to investigate and not just believe. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm finding a middle way, one that I consider relevant for my practice, without diverting from the teaching of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Times change and new discoveries are made, and Buddhists are typically very aware of impermanence, as that, in itself is an important concept in the Buddha's teaching. Just as a thought experiment, wouldn't it be interesting to know how the Buddha would communicate his teachings if he showed up here in the modern world today? I'm absolutely not pointing out that there are different ways of practicing the Dhamma to step on anyone's toes or to offend anyone. I'm just highlighting that there are indeed many very established schools of Buddhism that cater to different regions and different cultures through causality. Or to use a Buddhist concept that some of you might be familiar with, dependent origination. This leads us on to the symbolism in the suttas, in rituals, as well as in Buddhist art. I keep a beautiful statue of the Buddha here in my home. I use it as a reminder to practice, to remain mindful, not to cling to ideas, and not put too much trust in my own thoughts. So in a way, I see value in symbolism, but that doesn't mean that I take it literally. Anyone that has studied art history knows that a sculpture is an interpretation of a reality. In the case of my Buddha statue, he's depicted with what's called an ushnisha, a lump on his head. That doesn't mean that Siddhartha Gautama was born with a cranial deformation. It is an artistic representation of extraordinary wisdom, of spiritual development and enlightenment. I use this very visual example because it's something that most of us are familiar with, but I think that all symbolism can be treated in a similar fashion. If you dare to ask the question, there is normally a perfectly sensible answer that can explain religious symbols without leading us down the path of taking everything literally and falling into the trap of believing everything we see. A healthy level of skepticism can, in my opinion, be very enriching and comforting. It can enhance the value of one's practice rather than distracting from it. In the end of the day, it's up to you. If you find reassurance and beauty in ritual and storytelling, and if that adds value to your practice, by all means, you should embrace that aspect. The important thing is to practice and to let that form a part of your roadmap towards awakening. Talking about practice, last week I made the promise that we'd take a moment and learn to sit for meditation. Many people find the idea of meditation a little daunting or difficult to integrate into daily lives. And I can understand that. But in fact, it does not need to take up that much space or time at all. The difference between doing just a few minutes of meditation and not doing any at all can be profound. To pay attention and to observe the mind for just a brief moment can serve as a real eye-opener. I know that there is a certain status among meditators to sit very extensively, and that can certainly have value, but initially it's beneficial to start really small. When it comes to the actual sitting, this can be done cross-legged on the floor or on a chair. It's much more important to sit comfortably rather than forcing yourself into some monk-like posture. Let me show you. Join me here for just a few minutes of meditation. If you're sitting on a chair, like I do now, try to not lean back. Place your arms comfortably on your lap, feet firmly on the floor, and keep your back straight. Then slowly close your eyes and start scanning your body for any unwanted tension. I typically do this from the top of my scalp, across the forehead and down over the face. Putting a light smile on can add a sense of positivity and tranquility and help us to relax. Then we continue the body scan down the neck and across the shoulders. As we're doing this, we focus solely on the task at hand. We stay mindful and observant of the sensations in the body, letting go of any physical tension, stress, or anxiety. Slowly, we carry on down the limbs and across the chest. Here we pay attention to our breath, entering and exhaling from the lungs, but without forcing it in any sense. We just observe and keep the mind focused on this simple task. So we continue with the rest of the body. We enjoy the silence in the space that we are in and the tranquility of focusing solely on the exercise. We sit entirely still and enjoy the sensation of keeping the mind occupied with a simple appointment that we have set for ourselves. As we've gone through the entire body, we can take a moment to detect a sense of accomplishment in the fact that we have kept the mind successfully occupied with this simple mission for a few minutes without drifting off into thought or becoming restless. We appreciate the stillness that we have achieved in such a short space of time. And before the mind starts drifting off, we slowly open up our eyes and acknowledge that we successfully anchored the mind and traveled to an inner space, even though just for a very brief moment. That's how simple it can be. Being mindful with an effortless task like that can defines meditation? This can be breathing, walking, or drinking tea. It doesn't matter as long as you keep your mind from straying and from jumping about. As I have previously promised, in each episode I shall take a few minutes to answer some of your questions. So let's see what we have in the inbox. Okay, Emma from London is wondering, what was your biggest takeaway from your time as a monk? The most valuable outcome for me was, without a doubt, the improvements in my meditation. I had never before attempted to meditate that extensively. 4 sessions a day, and eventually getting to very profound meditations, sometimes lasting for over 2 hours. That said, I still prefer to meditate for around 40 minutes to an hour, and that's what I typically do in my daily practice. So Emma, the meditation, that was absolutely what gave me the most value. Let's see, Noi is asking, must be Thai. I know a Noi in Thailand, so maybe that's you. How did you continue your bicycle trip? That's referring to last week's episode. So initially, I rode from Bangkok to Chiang Mai, and then much later, after I disrobed, I headed southeast and I crossed the border to Laos at the checkpoint near the capital of Vientiane. From there I continued east across the mountains of Laos, through very heavy rain and very poor roads to the Vietnamese border. Then down the hills or the mountains to the South China Sea, and finally along the coast up to the city of Hanoi. My intention was actually to continue into China and to eventually fly out of Hong Kong, but I was denied the Chinese visa. So all in all, it came to about 3,500 kilometers or so. But it's important to mention here that I did all of this as a part of my pilgrimage. And it really provided an excellent opportunity to visit monasteries and to continue my practice along the way. I also found the endurance sport aspect to being an amazing anchor for the mind and highly meditative in itself. I hope that tells the story now. Then we have Alex in Mexico. He wants to know, how do I become a monk? Alex, there are many ways of joining the Sangha, and I have no generic answer to that question, I'm afraid, as it totally depends on your intention. I mean, it can be anything from a temporary ordination to full renunciation. Let's say if any one of you are genuinely interested in monastic life, you can send me an email in order to schedule a phone call, and I can guide you through the options that might suit you and your specific situation the best. I'm sorry, Alex, if I'm not really answering your question here, but I want to be a little careful as it varies so much from person to person. For that question, and for all other questions on monkhood, meditation, or just about anything else, please pop me an email to beyondbelief@reborn.com. Next week, I'm dedicating the whole episode to the topic of meditation. And we'll have a little more extensive Q&A as well, where I'll try to do a little better of a job giving you clear answers to your questions. Until then, remember to test your gold by rubbing it, cutting it, and melting it. See you next week. Bye-bye.